G'day, everybody. It's the Turnary Cops again. We're back, and Schultzy's here too. How are you, bud?
Yeah, good mate. Yourself? We're not going too bad. I'm still in Indooroopilly, but I hear you've ventured off into another city, mate.
Mate, I'm in the nation's capital today. I so ever since we discovered this ability to not be in the same place, which isn't great for our socialising and all the rest of it. With the new training and this week my brother graduated from Duntroon, so me and the family are down here. We had the graduation day and the dinner on Tuesday. It was good fun. So yeah, I'm in Canberra. We're heading back tomorrow, but yeah, no, it's all good down here. It's not even cold. It's quite nice.
Well, geez, that's all
No,
right, mate. It's yeah, bloody Canberra, mate. But I bet you're staying clear of the politicians.
I don't do politics, mate. You know that.
Yeah,
Actually,
mate.
very funny night the other night, mate. I was out till 3 o'clock in the morning the other night, and I ended up at our old haunt. And for anyone who's been to either the Australian Defence Force Academy or the Royal Military College, they'll be aware of the pub Mooseheads. Well, I'm about 20 years too old to go to Mooseheads, and I was there for about an hour, and I left knowing that I'm 20 years old, 20 years too old for Mooseheads. So yeah, I won't be going back, but that's okay. That's all good.
Oh,
Yeah. What are we on about
well,
tonight,
mate.
mate?
Look, yeah, well, mate, we've been we were discussing before we started, and just thinking about what we're going to talk about. But some of the messages we've got is people, a lot of people joining the police, or definitely just joined the police, and we thought that we'd just give a bit more information into what it's like, or some, I suppose. A bit of what we found when we entered the police. So, do you want to go a bit more into that, Damo?
Yeah, mate. So, I mean, we've spoken about training. So, I mean, the training's the objective, what everyone expects sort of thing, and explaining the training side of things. But something that we haven't really spoken about is um, how you'll come from being just another Joe in the street where, people are indifferent towards you and all the rest of it. One of the things a lot of people experience in the early side of their career is you do deal with a lot of animosity towards police. If you're dealing with crooks or you're dealing with people who don't necessarily like the consequence for their action, um, you can get you'll get verbally sprayed quite a bit and all the rest of it. And a lot of junior members, especially, and not some not so junior, take that fairly personally. So I think what we were talking about, and I think we're going to sort of go into two things, and no doubt, mate, we'll do our usual and wander off into other things, but. I think tonight we're going to talk about that the fact that it's not personal. This is not, they're not attacking you. They might be attacking the police force. They don't like the government or something like this. It's not that they're attacking Damo or Schultzy. They're attacking that side of it and the consequence for their own action. And I think
Yeah,
what we're going to talk about is we'll go over that, how you've got to understand that you now represent an organisation that is charged with upholding the law and public safety and all the rest of it. And as a result, two things I think. They're not necessarily angry at you. They're angry at your actions and they don't like your organisation. And secondly, you also work for an organisation that has standard operating procedures, general orders, must follow legislation. So therefore, you have to act a certain way. So you're an instrument for justice in the society that you're working for. So a lot of people might go out and they go, well, I've got the power to do this. I've got the power. No, you don't. The office of constable has that power, or the office of sergeant has that power. You happen to be occupying that position. So I think we're going to just describe that a little bit. And then I think we're also going to say, and the best way to do this is to build really good relationships with, as best as possible, with the community that you police in. And I think that's most relevant. It's relevant everywhere, but it's most relevant in smaller communities where um, you may need the public to help solve your problems
yeah,
as well. And we've spoken about that in bush policing and talking about remote stuff and sticky situations where members of the public have helped out. And I think, yeah, that's what we're on about today. So, what are your thoughts, mate, with that? When we obviously go through training, you get taught how to do the job. The job must be done a certain way because that's the law. It's legislative requirement. Standard operating procedures and general orders are lawful orders, that you must obey those orders, and you must operate the way that the police commissioner has decided is the way we operate. So, what are your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, mate. It's one of those things. Like I found, I've always been fairly resilient. I think even as a kid, but the police really, the one of the most important things is to learn resilience, and it's because you will get attacked constantly. You know, the amount of names you get called on a daily basis is
Mm.
phenomenal. Like most people would not even get called one in a week. You know what we get called in an hour.
Oh yeah,
It's just absolutely phenomenal. And it's so it comes in, and I suppose you kind of when you're inside the police, you don't realize as much as when I first came out, and I was working with a mate. One of my best mates from school here in Brisbane, and he's in a position where he cops quite a bit of abuse, and he said, like, I'll work alongside him, and he goes, when somebody does something to you, it's like water off a duck's back. I said, mate, I've been abused that many times. It just doesn't bother me anymore. I
no,
don't. I am not going to care what somebody thinks who I don't like, or I don't care their opinion. I care about what my mates think and what my family thinks, or people I have respect for. That's who I care about. I do not care about the average Joe Blow down the street that is unhappy about me not letting him break the law. So
yeah,
it's something I think you'll learn over time. Yeah. So I mean, can you add a bit more on that, mate?
yeah. So you said a really good word there that I really like. It's called resilience. I think there are a lot of people in society now who have to show resilience all the time. Emergency services, obviously, health workers definitely have to show resilience. Basically, you have to go through look, lots and lots of different professions have to show resilience. Is the way it is. There is a bit of a victim mentality in society where that offended me, all this sort of thing. Well, in the Northern Territory, especially, it was legislated that police officers can't be offended by words. So the
Yeah.
legislation said, well, words don't hurt. If they attacked you physically, that's different, but words don't hurt you. It's like, yeah, that's right. Words don't hurt, and suck it up and move on.
Yep.
But I think one thing, and I'd like to relate. I've had a really good week here in Canberra, and on Tuesday was an excellent day. Just I was back at Duntrin. I went to Duntrin a very long time ago. I didn't graduate. I was way too young to be there. It's something that anyway, it didn't matter. But it's a place that I kind of liked. But to see my little brother graduate was really good. So I found that excellent. I had the privilege of actually sitting in the commissioning ceremony just after lunch, and we were addressed by the Chief of Army, Lieutenant General Simon Stewart, and he gave a really good speech. And I mean, he's a very impressive fella. But one of the things he said was that I will require physical courage from you in the years to come. It may be that I require physical courage from some of you, especially. He's gone, however, one thing I definitely will require from all of you is moral courage. And I thought that was bloody poignant to policing too, because the reason all these words and this conflict comes up is that police officers must show moral courage all the time.
Yep.
You will have to carry out, and I've said this before, but it's a popular, I mean, it's a common theme. You just have to come back to it. The police aren't necessarily enforcing popular ideas. I heard a really good, excuse the language, but the old fuck the police thing. Well, I remember seeing something where someone said, no one ever says fuck the fire department. And that's because the fire department aren't necessarily doing controversial things. They're running
Yep.
into a bushfire or a house fire, and they're putting fires out and they're helping people, and they're doing really. And I'm not belittling that; that's fantastic. But they're not necessarily doing things that are unpopular. The police will have to do things throughout the career that are unpopular, and that will make you the target of abuse because the popular opinion in the immediate area might be against you. But the fact of the matter is, the law states this. We're here to enforce the law, and I'm sorry, but that's the way it has to be done. Um, a lot of this occurs in major centres all the time, and it's not really done in a personal way. It's just, at a protest or something, there will be abuse there towards the police because at that particular, at that event, that protest or whatever else, the people there are, they're all thinking in the same way, and you're there to just, you're not agreeing or disagreeing with them, but you are enforcing the law in public, so especially social disorder laws, and that may be unpopular. So it's and that's where a lot of that abuse comes. that's where your word comes back. And I know it's a fantastic word that I like, that you need that resilience to understand that they are spraying you as a member of the police force. They're not spraying you personally. And I think
Yep.
that's a good thing to get across, especially to junior police. Senior police know this. We joke. We used to joke all the time about some of the really creative abuse that we used to get, and it was funny. Um, I don't want to go too far into it because some of it will be bloody offensive to. And my grandmother listens to this, so I'm not going to repeat the words, but
Yep.
she can handle the F bomb occasionally, but not that I'd ever say it to her face. But I don't think she can handle the stuff that we've been called. So, you'd come back, and some of the things were just funny. They really were. Like, yeah, geez, that's actually really creative. Well done. For some of the abuse, some of the words you've been called, some of the names, you just go, wow, where'd that come from? Um, so yeah, I think that resilience, and once again, I've just inadvertently done it, but it's that humor. So the humor comes back, and that's your way of
Yeah.
dealing with it, and that's the shared, the shared experience with your people there.
Yeah, but mate, it's actually something like you mean because you do laugh about it, and that's what you got to learn to do. You got to learn to laugh it off because at the end of the day, like you said, it's actually towards the police department. The police department is such a massive organization, and it doesn't care. It doesn't really care at all. But you've just got to laugh it off and go, yeah, well done, mate, and keep you calm. And I'm just going to move on to something, and we spoke about it before we started this recording. I had a friend of mine said to me, she had a friend that joined the police and went into recruits, into the college, and they didn't last. They basically left because they said they were belittled and spoken down to and treated like a child and all that.
Mm.
When you're in the college, that's done for a reason. It's not done because they want to bully you. It's not done because they want to pick on you. It's done because you have to build that resilience. You've got to know that you are starting at the bottom as well. You have to listen to orders, but you've also got to be able to put up with the crap. You got to build your emotional resilience up to be able to cop that when you get on the road. Because if you lose it out on the road, that's when you'll get in serious trouble. There's
Yeah,
people that have lost it and they've lost the job because of it. So that's why they do that. And I think so. So when you're going through it, all of us went through it.
yeah.
I mean, how many times did we get smashed with the college demo?
Oh, yeah. And look, none of that's personal either. And the thing is, it comes back years later where your instructors will go, no, you guys were good. Yeah, no, you were solid. We were just giving it to you because we needed you to be tough. We needed to toughen you up a bit. And it's interesting that you say that the college, I don't think it happens as much. I used to get the shits with the real childish stuff used to annoy me a bit. But I tell you what, things that don't annoy me. You're taking civilians from your own world, doing your own thing. You mightn't necessarily have been exposed to group discipline before, where no, 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 your role is this and you must do that. There's no, you might have had options before, and it might have been you're in a workplace where no, well, we want everyone's input, and the police is still like that. But the police and the military, and I know that the fireys are like it. So emergency services and all arms of the military are basically the same in this regard to differing degrees, of course. The army is obviously a lot more like it because they've got to mould a soldier out of a civilian, but you sort of need to mould a police officer out of a civilian as well. And that's where I was talking earlier about those general orders and that sort of thing, and the SOPs and things like that. You have to understand that you need to do what you're told, sort of thing, from above. But it's not so much that you're told it day in, day out, because police have to think for themselves a lot on the road, but they have to
Yep.
know their bounds. They have to understand the rules that they work by, and that being, like I've said, legislation, standard operating procedures, and general orders. So it's important at the college that sort of that is imposed upon you, that you must do what you have to do the right thing here. The laws are in place for us to carry out our role to protect the public correctly and enforce the law correctly. Um, as a second to that, it also builds the resilience and that group ability to go through hardship and to deal with that hardship and to continue on. Because I guarantee you, in the police force, you definitely will go through hardship. I don't care what you do in the police force, that you will go through hardship. But that's
Yep.
okay. That means you've got a purposeful job. There's hardship in everything that's meaningful. So, yeah, the training's designed to have you at a level where you can step out, like you said, with that level of resilience, where you're able to get on the road and understand. Of course, you're going to be supervised, and you're going to have a senior member and all that sort of thing, and you look to them for guidance. But you've got to have that base level of ability to know that no, we're in the police. We have to carry out. We have to hold ourselves to a certain level, and we have to be the bar. And look, are police perfect all the time? Like I've said 1,000 times before, no. Mistakes happen. Criminal acts take place. At the end of the day, we're still human beings.
Mm.
But on the whole, I never saw criminal activity by police officers. I know it existed. I personally never saw it, but I know it existed. I know there was a couple of fellas who went to prison while we were there for certain things. They're human beings. But I tell you what, on the whole, they were good, upstanding citizens who were doing a bloody hard job and doing it well, and showing a lot of resilience and getting a lot of abuse for doing their job, but sort of taking that on the chin and rolling with it and turning up the next day to do the job. So I think
Yeah,
that sort of segues nicely into the importance to sort of the other side of that. When you come out of the college and you're wearing that uniform, you remember that you're there to serve the community. So, yes, you're going to cop abuse from certain members of the community if you're carrying out your role and that role's unpopular. However, the community will be your greatest asset if you treat them quite well. And I'm going to speak about something a little bit controversial. So, I found that the quickest way, and I find this in bush places everywhere, but more so interstate from the NT. So I find this in the eastern states a little bit. The over regulation of traffic offences in small areas can be detrimental to the relationship with police. If you take on more of an educational
yep,
role in those, I'm not talking about the local hoons drink driving away from the pub doing burnouts as they do it. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about you can damage your relationship with society by the overzealous enforcement of low end regulatory offences, especially if they can see other offending taking place. That the perception may be that nothing really has come of that, and that may not be correct. But the fact is, the perception will be that way. It's one of those things that has to be tempered. You have to enforce the law in all aspects, but I think more importantly, you have to have a good relationship with the people in those areas, and the I think the way to do that is to speak to people, to approach people, to know people on a first name basis, to show your humanity, and that way that will help with your resilience, because all of a sudden it will be no, I know Damo, and he was doing that job, and I know he's a good fella, and there's no, he would have had no animosity in that. He was just carrying out his role or whatever else. So, do you want to go on a little bit about the building of
mm.
relationships in remote areas? And I mean, obviously, our experience is a lot with in Indigenous communities, but it's relates everywhere. So, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, mate. I'll just touch on one thing there. Just a joke about it, I suppose, a little bit. We used to always say, when all else fails, revert to the traffic acts, and that
Yeah,
means not hammering people on the traffic. But I'd like occasionally I have, and I'll tell a bit of a story here. Just after I explained, so I spent quite a lot of time in Arnhem Land, a lot of bush stations, as you know, a lot of people have. But one of the things you have to, it's important if you go into one of those places, it is much you trusting them as them trusting you. And you've got to build that relationship. And the important thing, being a police officer, you always have to uphold the law. So
mm,
that is your baseline. And you've got to draw a line in the sand and say, this is what I'll accept and this is what I won't. You've got to
yeah,
be consistent. I mean, imagine I've never had kids, but it's exactly the same with kids. You know, you've got to know this is what's accepted, this is what isn't. It's not saying the Aboriginal community of kids, but it's any population that you're dealing with. They have to know where you stand, and once they know where you stand, then you can build that relationship. And it takes a lot of work, but it's important to build that line in the sand and know that that if things go bad, they know you're going to look after you, but they know you can get cranky as well. And I'll tell a couple of stories just to explain what I mean. I had, I mean, Millingimby was one of those places that had quite a few youth that used to go around sniff, break into sniff volatile substances and all that sort of thing. Anyway, one of the first times this happened, we had about, I don't know, 10 of them. they'll break into this place and we didn't have any evidence to identify these youth, but of course you want to apprehend them, not so much so they can go to jail, but you need to stop them sniffing. You need to stop that behaviour because it's very detrimental to their health and can cause death. So I went around and I said to the community elders, I said, I want these youth down at this, station and all this by, midday, such. Anyway, no, nobody came down. I said, all right, well, bring them in by the end of the day, and nobody brought them in by the end of the day. This is when I was building that relationship with community, and I was never heavy on traffic. And like Damo explained before, there were drink drivers, yeah, but this is a dry community, so you don't get much of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd built that much of a relationship with them that the next day, I remember grabbing my offside and I said, right, that's it. We're going out. We're hammering traffic. We pulled every single car over and we handed out $5,000 worth of tickets within the first hour. Like that
Yeah.
is like, it's only an island. It's not, it's not that they're going to go speeding and roll the car and all that sort of thing. And I said to every single one I pulled over, I said, this will continue until those kids are brought in so I can actually deal with them and get them off the volatile substances. Do you know what? By midday, they had them all brought down to the station for me. So I didn't have to round them up and they brought them all in. And I dealt with them. I basically got them so that they wouldn't continue that behaviour. I had a good talking to them because a lot of these kids are between 10 and 14.
Yeah.
And then it was funny though. I suppose one of the consequences of that was the fact that they all felt so bad about what they'd done by not actually listening to me in the first place. They all came and paid their fines the next day.
Yeah.
So if anybody doesn't understand fines in bush community, it all goes through the police station. So you spend basically the whole day in relation to fines recovery, getting all the getting all the payments done. But that's just one of the ways you can draw the line in the sand and use traffic to your advantage if you don't hit it all the time. Because if you're hitting traffic all the time, it won't have that effect. But however, if you need something done, it's something you can fall back on.
Yeah, and that's definitely in those areas where the communities know each other quite well. It's definitely that, live your life. We're not going to clamp, but it's there's times where you have to clamp down. And I just want to clarify as well, I'm not saying you let everyone get away with crazy traffic offences out in the bush.
No.
But, I'm talking more that really minor mistakes that people made. Oh, geez, I just drifted up to 65, 70 k's an hour in the 60 zone. Like, oh, no, okay, so you drifted up, you've got no history, no worries. Things like that, where you're not just being ruthless in one area, and then there might be a perception that, oh, well, we've had 3 house break-ins this week. Have you caught them? So it's sort of like you can, you've really got to, out in those areas, focus on what really is important. And it may be that you have a major traffic issue in town and there's something, and that's different. But, yeah, I think my point is that if you treat the people like people who are just going about their daily life, they're not out looking to break the law, you'll have an excellent rapport in those smaller places with the general community, and you'll be a well-known and an important member of those communities. So I know we spoke about it in bush policing, how a very young person can have a very important job out in a little local community like that, and you'll be held in a very high regard if you do it well. But you can also end up the town terrorist if you're just targeting everyone for really minor offences all the time, and then not socialising, so not being a known person. Like a well-known person in the community.
Yeah.
But this relates everywhere. This being reasonable, and I think it's done well generally. General Duties Police do it brilliantly everywhere. Even last night, when was it, Tuesday night, looking at the Australian Federal Police and the ACT, and the military police too, for that matter, they were out and about, knowing that all the cadets were out, all the graduates, were out and about. They were just out, and they were fantastic. People coming out of pubs. Admittedly, it's a crowd that's low risk. I mean, you've got the commissioned officers, young commissioned officers. They might do something silly, but they're not going to do anything ragingly criminally generally. They're coming out of the pub, and the guys are, hey, over here, guys, you want a taxi? Yeah, jump in, no worries. Well, how's your night going? Just really good presence. Absolutely, there was presence. But there was just good liaison happening. And it wasn't just there were people out and about. So it was with everyone. They were just having a really good relationship. Like I think we used to have with City Safe in Darwin, where you let people do what they do. They're out having fun. You don't encroach on fun, but you do maintain that social order. And like you said, mate, that line in the sand. You go, right, oh, you can do this, you can carry on, you can be frivolous, you can have a bit of a laugh. It's an entertainment precinct. You're allowed to have fun. What you're not allowed to do is
Mm.
victimize other people, damage property, urinate on some
Yep.
business's door while they're shut. You're not allowed to do that. And that's where the police are expected to step up. You're not allowed to get in your car at 0.25 and drive home. So, there's
Yep.
things like that um, that's where I think that's where the respect comes as well, especially if they know that no, look, he's good. They'll let you let you have a good night. Not getaways. Getaway is the wrong word, but they'll let you do your thing and live and just be human. But they'll also not tolerate certain behaviour, and I think that's where that respect comes from. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
mate. I think the important word there is discretion. You know,
absolutely
and
yeah,
police do have a certain amount of discretion, and it's about it's about not it, look and look. This might be a little bit controversial. It's not the law is not black and white.
no, it's
All
not.
right. It comes down to people's intention, I suppose, on how they go about things. What was it when we call it somebody coming up the traffic? It's their personality, how they deal with things, and that's where you sometimes you decide whether they get a ticket or not.
Oh, the
If you
attitude
just
test. Yeah,
yeah, the attitude test. That's it.
yeah,
And yeah, like it's and you've got to allow a little bit of fun in the job as well. Like
yeah.
Damo said, don't you can't let them get away with stuff and victimize people.
No,
But if it's a bit of harmless fun, you don't have to crack down hard on them because that will end up with a world of hurt with you when you're outnumbered and you haven't and backup's not coming for a long way. We've had people stand in and stand beside us that aren't police to back us up,
yeah,
and that's where that relationship building is really important. And I've said a few times, even in the police, where I've had the community back me up and against their own blood,
yeah,
which is really important. But it takes time, and you've got to build that relationship to get that to get that sort of respect, and you've got to build a respect with a lot of these people, and like Damo, you said, it can be in the middle of Darwin if the business owners know you
yeah.
and they know you're firm but fair. Then that's the one I like to say, but firm but fair. So you'll crack down on anybody that's doing something bad, but you also be fair in the reason that okay, yeah, well, their attitude good. They didn't actually mean any harm by it, so it's not so much you let it slide, but you'll sit there and go, all right, well, you don't just lock them up for nothing
No,
when you can. So
and a lot of it comes down to intention to me. So to err is human, human beings. So I love we teach, and I won't go right into it now, but obviously, I teach a bit of. I'm learning to teach anyway. Learned firefighting. One of the things we talk about there, it's an error catching mechanism called crew resource management, where everyone gets a say on how a decision is going to be made in a risky situation. And the reason that exists is because humans do make errors. Even very, very competent human beings make errors. And as a result, to err is human. That's just how it is. What
yep,
police need to understand is that sometimes people make a mistake and their intention, their genuine intention may not have been to harm anyone or to have done the wrong thing, but it may have occurred. And as a result, that just allowing people to make a mistake is fine. That needs to be catched up. When if someone walks out of a pub and deliberately breaks a window, well, that's not an error, is it? That's a bloody you're a piece of shit, mate. So,
yep,
um, that's different. It's the little slip ups here and there, and it can be anything. And my example before was doing letting a car speed up to 65 in a 70 zone, 60 zone, or 70. You're like, who hasn't done that? Who doesn't do it almost daily? You go, oh, geez, and back off.
yeah,
It just might be that highway patrol's coming the other way at the same time, and they've got you. But you've got to sort of understand that to err is human, and there's got to be that educational role there. And if you do obviously correct the behaviour, but then allow humans to make small errors and just educate and carry on from there, but be reasonable in your dealings, then that's where you'll build that relationship. But yeah, mate,
yeah, yeah.
I
You're
think the whole
exactly right.
purpose of this one, it's only short and sharp, but yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts there? Sorry, mate, were you going to say something then? I might have jumped the gun, have I?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of stories, but I was just
Yeah,
actually going to say that I won't go into them now because they're fairly lengthy. And we will go more into depth into this sort of thing. There's so much to talk about, and I think like some of the best ways, like some of the our experiences is probably some of the best way to explain exactly what we're saying, because there's no written rule about how you do it, and
Mm.
people do it differently. However, I think you and I were probably fairly similar in the way we dealt things. We weren't always the same, but that's life and that's humans. And you've got to understand that there is different ways of doing things. As long as you stay within that general line of between good and evil, and actually doing what is best in the situation, I think you'll be pretty right. And it comes down to a moral compass, in how you deal with that. But mate, I think what we might actually do is we might comment on some of the people that have actually got in touch with us. Um,
Yeah,
just as a bit of a thing, and you all remember Jeremy? He was a fiery from Catherine.
yeah, yep.
He contacted us, and he
Well,
really loved the
he
podcast.
was an auxiliary firefighter, but he was actually a RAFI. He was in the Air Force.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
that's right. He was, yes,
I think
and
he still is. I don't know.
yeah,
I
so
haven't spoken to him for years.
he gave a shout out, and he really loves it. So a big shout out to him and his wife Pam,
Yeah, for
as
sure.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she was exceptional. I think I actually did the waltz with her because I was she was part of the bridal party that I was involved in as well. So
That's right. Yeah,
um, yeah. So that was many years ago, but also a guy Damo Duggs, Victorian Police. He got in contact. Really loves the loves the podcast, so big shout out to him as well.
mm.
And mate, I believe you got one from across the ditch.
Yeah. And a fellow reach out just late afternoon this afternoon, just saying that he was really interested to hear how it's just so similar, and I think that's not news to us, but I think it can be news to a lot of people. That I love the old saying, "Policing is policing." Having had a lot to do with interstate and international police officers, we really do operate the same way. We all of us have very similar ways of being, basically. We all have a pretty strong moral code. I think like there's a strong, yeah. We all have a sense of right and wrong, and we sort of know how to do our job. But I think what I really love is we've all got a sense of humour, and that's the.
Yeah,
I like to think a lot of us have a sense of humour. I don't know how anyone gets through the job without that, but I've always
exactly.
found most coppers do have a bit of a sense of humour, and those who don't seem to last too long. So they seem to take it all a bit too
No, well, that's
seriously, and it
exactly right,
just gets a
mate.
bit hard.
Yeah, I think also, mate, we will pay the Kiwis out a little bit here, but only we can, because anybody else does it, God help them. But I know, I think Alice Springs Radio was just about a Kiwi radio at one stage,
Mate,
wasn't
I was about to say that. So when I first got to Alice Springs, there'd been an accelerated recruitment squad, and it was the first squad that had ever gone through, and not in Darwin. So they actually put a squad through in Alice Springs, and that was made
it?
up of all jurisdictions in Australia, but it was extremely heavily populated by former New Zealand coppers. And as a result, you drive around in the radio, and all you could hear was, "Yeah, hey, firm, yep." It was just like it was like an episode of Police 10/7. For those who don't know what police, there's a New Zealand police TV program called Police 10/7. It's basically very similar to Cops or the Force or something similar to that, or Territory Cops. But it was all about New Zealand. But I will pay them out. We love the Kiwis, but I tell you what, mate, they were great cops. They were so good. They
Oh,
knew how they were excellent at de-escalation. They've come from there's a bit of a misunderstanding. They think that New Zealand police aren't armed. They're armed to the teeth. They just don't carry firearms on their hip.
yeah,
There's plenty of firearms there if they need it. But yeah, they just have an excellent way about them. And I mean, I can't think of a single New Zealand copper who I didn't like. They were good operators. I really liked them. And that
yeah.
goes against everything. I don't really want to sit here and blow smoke up the Kiwis' backsides, but I'm going to, because they were bloody good cops.
Oh, come
So,
on, bro.
and
No
they,
need to be like that.
hey, oh, what's that, bro? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, I've got a quick joke at their expense. So, um, what did the New Zealand-based spirit level say to the builder?
Don't know.
Not, not even, bro. Oh, I stuffed it. I missed it. I've lost it on you. Oh no, we're going to cop flack for that.
Right, actually, I've got one that goes the other way, and I've actually got a Kiwi that was coming into Australia, right? And he gets to customs, and they're checking off his forms and all that sort of thing, and they turn to him and they go, "Oh, you've had no convictions." Oh, I didn't think I needed that to get into Australia anymore.
Yeah, yeah, very true. No, we do like the Kiwis. It's John
So,
Williamson sings a
yeah,
song
anyway,
called "The
mate, a
Kiwi
good
and
way
the
to
Emu."
finish it off.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, no, sorry, mate. I was just saying, John Williamson writes a song called the Kiwi and the Emu, and one of the lines in that song goes, "If you pick on one, you pick on two, the Kiwi and the Emu."
Oh,
So
yeah,
we're allowed to take the piss out of them, but no one else is.
exactly. That's
Mm,
exactly right, mate. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You won't see Happy Me if anybody tries to pick on them. And considering my missus is a Kiwi, I've really got to stand up for him as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, very good, mate. So, look, I think we'll do a bit of a recap. So,
All
I
right.
think we sort of thought about this by a couple of people saying, "How do you sort of take the abuse and what do you do there?" And we've explained that you need to obviously have a good teamwork and all that sort of thing, and build that resilience within yourself, and understand that you have to use moral courage and do unpopular things. But also, a lot of that can be helped by building a good relationship with the community that you're in and that you're policing, and obviously be firm but fair, like you said. So if you're consistent in your dealings
Yeah,
and you're fair in your operations, and people know what to expect from you, and you've got a sense of humor and you're a likable person, you don't have to be likable. Not everyone is. It's not everyone's thing, but generally
yeah.
speaking,
You
that's
don't have
worked
to
for
be
us.
everybody's favourite.
No, you don't have to be. You're not there to be the favourite, but people
No.
just go, no, no, he's firm but fair. He's a fair fella, and he's got a sense of humour, and there's no issue. But policing's not always popular, so you've got to know that as well. But yeah, if you're
Yeah,
interested in the
yeah.
police, look, it's a hell of a career. It's got its ups and downs, but it's very rewarding, and it's tough. It's a tough job.
It is. Yep, yep.
Mm,
I'd say it's a lifestyle. But mate, I
yeah,
reckon we can probably just about wrap it up there.
yeah, for sure, mate. We'll be back next week like we always are. But yeah, keep the feedback coming. We love it. We're yeah, negative, positive, whatever you like. Yeah, we're happy. We're resilient. No, it's
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely,
mm,
mate. I'll tell you what, like it's actually like the amount of topics we were kind of going through them before we started, and the amount of people what they want us to touch on and talk about, or just saying they're really happy with what we're doing. It's been really good. So thank you very much for everybody that's actually come back to us because yeah, that's we know we're going on the right track or seem to be going on the right track. If you think we're not going on the right track, you're most welcome to say so. Whether we believe you or not, well, that'll be a different story. But and that's part of that resilience thing.
yeah, we'll drop our
But yeah,
bottom lip
but
and cry and
look,
quit. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
But yeah, thank you all to that's got that has actually reached out to us. It's been very good. So thank you for that. But anyway, mate, you want to sign it off?
yeah, mate. That's it from us, Two Ordinary Cops. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
See ya.